Hi students, we're on 5-7 and we are dividing whole numbers by decimals today. The first thing I want to show you is how using money to show shifts in patterns, okay? We have a person named Jordan, and Jordan earns $243 every week. And now I want to know how many dimes that is that he's actually earning in a week and how many pennies that is. So I want to first think about dimes. We know that a dime is, looks like that, it's 10 cents, right? And if I were asking you how many dimes are there in $1, there are 10 dimes in $1, right? So there's 10 of these in one whole dollar. So if I wanted to know how many dimes there are in $243, then I would shift the numbers once to the left, because a dime has 1 0 and it's in the tens place, so I would shift them one place to the left. 2,430 dimes is in the $243, okay? So you see that the 2 that was in the hundreds place now went to the thousands place. The 4 that was in the tens place went to the hundredth place, and the 3 that was in the ones place went to the tens place, and I put a 0 in the ones place, okay? So all the numbers shifted once to the left. Also, you could get that answer by just multiplying by 10, okay? Sometimes division and multiplication relate to each other. And instead of dividing this by 10 cents, which is what you're doing, you can just multiply it by 10 because there are 10 dimes in $1, okay? So there's two ways to get this. We can shift the digits once to the left, because there is one place, 1 0 there, or multiply by 10. We're gonna get the same answer in both. Same kind of an idea with pennies. And we think, how many pennies are there in $1? Well, I know that a penny looks like that. The 1 is in the hundredths place, and it takes 100 pennies to make $1. So if we know that it takes 10 dimes to make $1, and the numbers shifted once to the left, then for pennies, with my 2 zeros, I think I'm gonna shift the numbers twice to the left. So the 2, now this is the hundreds, the tens, and the ones, the 2 will have to go over 1 2 places. So I'm gonna put the 2 there, put the 4 there, put the 3 there, and then that would be a 0 and a 0, okay? So I'd come in and put my comma there, and all I did was I wrote that number originally and added 2 more zeros. Again, you can think about another way to relate this to multiplication, is you would say, well, I know that there's 100 pennies in $1, so I can take this number and multiply it by 100, and you would get the same answer. Okay, now let's talk about how we can change the decimal divisors to a whole number, okay? Because we don't like dividing with decimals. It's much easier to not have a decimal. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of the decimal when you're dividing. Let's say we had 6 and we want to divide it by 2/10, okay? We can think of this problem also like this, because that means the same thing. That line on a fraction bar means division, okay? So if I'm looking at this, and this is my problem, I'm going to try and get the decimal out. And I will do that by multiplying both of these by 1 whole. In this case, I'm not going to use 1 over 1. I'm going to use 10 over 10, so I can get a big number and get the decimal out of this bottom one, okay? So when I multiply this by 10, that means I'm taking my decimal and I'm moving it over once and making it a whole number, which is why I chose 10. So this would be 60, and this would move once. The 2 would be there, and it would just be a 2, now that I multiplied it by 10 over 10. 6 and 2/10 is equivalent to 60 over 2. That's going to give you the same answer, but now I'm working with a number that doesn't have a decimal, so it's a lot easier to divide, okay? And when I just look at that, I can see, oh, that's 60 divided by 2, that's 30, okay? Another way to look at this is when you see a number written like this first one is your dividend. That one goes inside the box when you're dividing. And the second one is your divisor, and that goes on the outside of the box when you're dividing. Okay, so basically, if you see a decimal here, you need to get it out. You can multiply it by 10, or we know that when you multiply by 10, you're just shifting the digits over. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get rid of this decimal. I'm going to move it once to the right and make that a whole 2. Whatever I do over here, I have to do over here. I don't see a decimal, which means it's at the end, and I will shift it one time, and it looks like I need to add a 0. So this 0.2 divided by 6 is actually going to look like 2 divided by 60, which is what we got there, okay? So I'm showing you that I multiplied by 10 to get an equivalent fraction. These two numbers are the same, but now I'm just not dealing with the decimal, because who wants to deal with the decimal if you don't have to? You don't have to do that. You can just shift your decimal like this, and whatever you do to the divisor, you do to the dividend, okay? So I'm going to move this once, move that once, which means I've got 2 divided by 60, which is 30, okay? Now let's say, let me switch colors. Let's say I move to the problem 6 divided by 0.02. So now I've got 2 decimal spots in this number, okay? So when I can think about it like this, I can say, all right, this is the same as saying 6 over 2 hundredths. And I'm going to multiply this by 100 over 100, because that's like one whole, so it's going to be an equivalent fraction. And I know that I have to do 100 to get that decimal out. So that will look like 600 over 2. Okay, because I'm going to move it twice, which would be, again, 30. No. 300. Sorry, 300. Or I can put it like this, 6 divided by 0.02. So you're moving the decimal all the way over. However many moves you make for the divisor, then you do the same for the dividend. So I'm going to move this, I'm trying to get the decimal all the way over. So that's going to take 1, 2 hops, which means this one needs 1, 2 decimal points over there, okay? So I've got 2 divided by 600, which again we said is 300. So when you have a decimal here in the divisor, we want to get rid of it. We don't like decimals in the divisor, so we move them over, shift the numbers, which is the same as multiplying them.